All right, so here we are, first weekly Wednesday Q&A. Now, what I did earlier, for those who missed it, is I actually put a link on my Facebook page for people to comment on, where they could ask me questions. So I'm going to answer those, and if there's any other questions that kind of roll in as we do this, I will do my best to answer them. I'll try to keep this short. I did have quite a few on Facebook and some on Instagram. So we'll see what we get to, but let's go ahead and get it started. I know there will be a few more people rolling in, but I like to start shit on time. And I said 7 o'clock, and it is 7 o'clock Central. So let's dive right into everything. Garrett asked, starting off on here, he said, what is my view on SARMs? As a natural athlete, obviously I do not recommend anybody taking any performance-enhancing substances. In all honesty, I don't think, especially those, I don't really find a point to them. If you want to go that route, go for it, but I will never encourage anybody to do that. Garrett also asked, why do I not suggest doing fasted cardio when a lot of other people swear by it? Now, that's a really good question. I personally do not like fasted cardio. I just feel like shit when I do it. But the studies have shown that it is not, neither source is better than the other. So if you, out of convenience, like to do fasted cardio in the morning, go for it, But personally, I like to have a little bit in my system. It just helps me get through it a little bit more. I feel like even if I have a little bit, even if it's BCAAs, in my system, maybe I can get through it a little bit better. What's up, James? Thanks for tuning in, man. So that's it for that one. Garrett, another one in a row here. What is the most effective way you have found to stop cravings while dieting besides sheer willpower? That is a tough one, Garrett. I would say, what I always recommend is just make sure that you are spacing out your food throughout the course of the day appropriately. Obviously, since you're working with me, that I lay out your food based off the time that you eat. So really just make sure we're spacing that out and not eating too much, at one time. So I would say that, and another one is just make sure you're keeping hydrated at all times. Thanks for tuning in, Karen. And that'll help you keep a little bit more satiated, in my opinion. That, and I think a big one, and what you're getting at, is cravings. Really, you don't want to be eating trigger foods. So let's say, you crave sugar all the time. If you eat more sugar throughout the course of the day, you're going to be craving that. So although you still can, and it won't negatively affect the outcome of your diet, let's say that sugar is a trigger for you, you might want to stay away from those foods because then you'll be craving those. All right, let's dive into another one. Bronwyn has a few, so we'll get into those. What is your normal routine as far as what you eat in the day, and what are your supplements that you take up until you go to bed? So this is going to be a long one. I did prepare for it. So what do I eat throughout the day? We'll start with the first half of that. Every day, I eat about 5 meals. 5 meals and 1 shake. I eat 2 meals before I work out. I drink a shake afterwards, and then I eat 2 meals after I lift. What do I usually eat? It varies on the day-to-day, but for what I've been eating for breakfast more recently is Greek yogurt, granola, and almonds. Sometimes I throw strawberries in it if they're looking fresh. For my pre-workout meal, I usually have some kind of sandwich and pretzels just to get a little bit higher carbs. Shake, we'll get to that as far as the supplements. Post-workout meal definitely varies, higher in carbs for sure. Could be pasta, some kind of burrito. And then my bedtime meal can be a bunch of things. Sometimes I do go back to Greek yogurt, cereal, granola. Sometimes I eat chicken and whatever else, bagels. It depends where my carbs are at. Obviously, the higher my carbs, a little bit more freedom I have. Sometimes I have to put down 5 or 6 servings of cereal or a couple bagels at night to meet my macros. Let's see here. As far as my supplements, now I do take quite a few supplements. Obviously, Everybody probably knows that I am a representative of Core Nutritionals, hence the nice 6 shirts with the police blue line. So I have all my supplements next to me, and I will run through them very quickly so everybody can see what I take and why. I will go with my pre-workout stack, which is quite extensive. I take Alpha, which is a test booster. I'm on it currently. This is my 6th week on it. So I take this 30 minutes before I go to lift weights. So that's the first thing that I take. Now my pre-workout shake consists of quite a few things. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sometimes. So I take HMB to help with muscle wasting. I also currently I'm taking Test and Alpha. So you actually take this right before you work out. And I usually take, depending on the dose, about a half scoop to 3/4 a scoop of Core Fury. On some days where I'm not going to train heavy, I will take ABCD, which is our amino energy product. So it's a little bit lower stim. It only has 100 milligrams of caffeine as opposed to 400 that Fury does. On certain days also, I will take Core Pump if I could get the label to go. And that is to help with blood flow and just a little bit more circulation to help you get pumped. And last but not least, I guess there's 2 things. Just kind of adds up, it's whole stack. I do take 1 scoop of ABC. This happens to be Wicked White Watermelon. And then for my carb source, I take pure dextrose powder. I take dextrose is because it is fairly cheap. I mean, that is a 10-pound tub, and it cost me $30. So that is my pre-workout. Now, during, I will drink BCAAs along with dextrose. And then post-workout, I also have more dextrose. And then I take ISO, Core ISO 1 scoop. And then I take, if I could get the label again, Core Pro 1 scoop. That has a little bit different kind of protein in it. It has a little bit slower digesting. The ISO is actually a little bit faster digesting. Karen, this is it's now dextrose powder. So it's pretty cheap, and I just get it right off of Amazon. Now, some people say that, cluster dextrin is a little bit better for you. And I agree, in all honesty, but just where I'm at right now financially, I'm not going to buy cluster dextrin. Now, maybe when I get into a contest prep and I'm a little bit worried about my carb sources, I might switch, but that's about it. And then the only other ones that I take right now is Core Flex for my joints. Sometimes I throw that into my post-workout shake, and then I take 5-AT 3 times throughout the day right now. Once again, I'm on my 6th week of that, so I'll be getting off of that shortly because you're supposed to cycle off after 8 weeks. So Brownman, I hope that answers your question. All right, another one from you. What is the difference in performance in the gym when working out in the morning versus later in the day? Now, that is a tough one. I know a lot of us are on different schedules. So me personally, I train about noon every day. And I have some people that train, at 5 o'clock in the morning. A couple of my clients train extremely early, and some train late at night. So as far as performance goes, if I train very early in the morning, let's say it's 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and I've only had 1 meal in or just a light snack, I feel like my performance is lower. Now, you can see that, if you've seen the studies, that supposedly testosterone is the highest, at least for males, in the morning. But for me, I feel like the more food that I have in me, a little bit more, I need to wake up a little bit. Although I am a morning person, I'm typically up at 6:30 every day. My muscles really don't warm up, until about 11 o'clock. And I really just can't muster the energy to start training until, 11:30. Now, I have trained, in the earlier afternoon, and I still feel very good. And once again, I think it's more because I have more food in me. I've been able to digest it a little bit more. So I just feel like I have more power. Now, that might be a little bit more mental than anything, because sometimes when I do have to train in the mornings, I really have to focus because I know that my performance might be a little bit lower. And sometimes those can be the best workouts that I've had in a long time. And I think the main factor is the increased focus. When I'm training at midday or the early afternoon, I know that I have food on my side. I know that I'm well rested, and I could perform better. And if I train in the early morning, sometimes I don't get enough sleep. Sometimes my meal timing's off, or I couldn't eat as much as I wanted to because of my schedule. So I think that's on a very individual basis. To wrap up your question, so we'll move on to the next one. Thomas asked, based on setting up micronutrients, I think he meant to say macronutrients throughout the day, what meals do you prefer your clients to have higher amounts of fats and why? So Thomas, that's a very good question. I actually did not expect you to say fats. I thought you were going to say carbohydrates. But anyway, so as I said earlier in the video when Garrett asked the question, I do space out everyone's diet according to when they're training. So I'll just go off of myself for an example, and then everybody can kind of jump in and kind of put it to where they find it useful. So like I said, I train about midday and I get 2 meals in before I train. And my first meal of the day, like I said in Bronwyn's question, what do I usually eat, is a little bit higher in fat. Now, the main reason, although my carbs are pretty high right now, they're at 460 grams a day, so I really don't have to space them out too much. But when I get into contest prep, my first meal will still be a little bit higher in fat. And the main reason behind that is because I'm not going to be utilizing as many carbohydrates right in the morning as I would need to for my training session in the early afternoon. So that is going to be a higher fat meal. And then personally, of course, you don't want to have a higher fat meal before your workout or right after your workout because fat slows down the absorption rates of your food. So I don't have a high fat meal before or after, and that's just, personally, but I think it's a little bit more effective. So after my 2 highest fat meals, Thomas, I would say would be my first and my last meal of the day. Like I said before, fat does slow digestion down a little bit. And especially in prep, it helps you not go to bed hungry. So if I eat my last meal, let's say about 9 o'clock at night and I'm going to bed at 10:30, I'm not going to be going to bed hungry because I burned through that food already. So that was a very good question. Now, Matt, let's see if I can move some of my stuff out of the way without having it fall over. Matt, congrats on turning pro, buddy, by the way. All right, so Matt asked, training differences for strength, size, and endurance, as well as different muscle groups respond better in different training styles than others. Examples, triceps versus biceps train. I've heard that biceps respond better to higher reps, while triceps respond better to volume for gain size. But truthfully, I really don't know how valid that is. Matt, I don't know. I think you just asked yourself a question too. So anyway, in regards to that, Matt, that's going to be, on a, oh, hey, you're tuned in, Matt. That's going to be on a very individual basis. Now, someone such as myself, I'll use my chest as an example. My chest is a definite weak point in my physique. I've been working on it. I personally cannot get good stimulus out of heavy weights, so strength training for chest. Now, if you were to go on the good old YouTube, you would see a video of me bench pressing like 295 pounds for sets of 3. And that did absolutely nothing for my chest. It was incredibly strong, but what I found is that, at least for my chest, is that I have to do higher rep, high volume work with moderate to low weights. And that's what gives me the best stimulus. So as far as some guys, on the other hand, that only bench press and they get crazy growth out of their chest. So I think that's, once again, kind of on an individual basis. I don't know. I'm sure there might be some kind of scientific studies on it. I don't know them, I'll be honest with you, Matt, but I really think it's going to come down to the individual and how your individual body parts respond. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. Matt, another one. Ab training. When to train them on, off season, or both, and why they should be trained, how to best train them to satisfy the why. The question is inspired by the statements I hear, such as my abs get trained enough when I do squats, and training abs doesn't give you abs. All right, well, everybody has abs. I'll just say that right off the start. But man, I know where you're coming from. And for you, being a physique athlete, having a nice set of abs is extremely important. So now I'll tell you this. I was very guilty of doing what you said, thinking that squats and deadlifts activate my core enough. And unfortunately, that's just not true, at least in my opinion. I feel like you do need direct ab work, just like anything else. So we'll just go back to the starter question, when to train them on or off season or both? All the time, in my opinion, because, if you only train them during contest prep, there's a chance that, you're just going to be holding on to any progress that you have. If you build them up in the off season, just like anything else, you're going to want to train them as hard as possible so you could actually improve. That's just like me saying, am I only going to work out during contest prep and not in the off season? If I only worked out during contest prep as opposed to the off season, I would not make any kind of gains. And what did Matt say here? Saying before training with you at least. Okay, got it. Obviously I encourage everybody to train abs all the time. That's really the easy answer for that one. I think Leah did ask a question here. Why should you maintain weight in the beginning before cutting? So she's talking about losing weight. And I think what you're getting at, since you work with me, I kind of know where you're coming from and what we're currently doing with you. But someone such as yourself who was on very low calories before, it is very important to build up your metabolism before we can start taking away. So someone that's really, really low on calories, you have to build up before you can start taking away, in my opinion. So with you, we have been roughly maintaining weight, and that's the goal. And then we're increasing your metabolic capacity, and that gives us something to take away from. I feel like a lot of people want to dive right into weight loss. That's a big mistake, especially if your body is not primed for it. So you really have to make sure you're eating enough before you go into a diet. And that ensures that the diet's going to be successful. Because if you go ahead first into a diet and you're only eating, let's say 1,200 calories, you can only go down so far, before you're going to stall. All right, Lydia, how often, and everybody, you could go ahead and feel free to ask me any questions. I'm just reading off the ones that I got earlier in today. So if you have any that you want answered, go ahead and comment them in the section, and I'll try to get to them. So Lydia said, how often to switch up your training program? What's too long? What's too soon? And the reasoning behind choosing a particular program after another. Oh, man. Okay, very good. So Lydia, let's get into the first part of your question. How often to switch up your training program? So I've run set week programs for myself, and I've also run programs that kind of don't have an end to it. And they have advantages and disadvantages of both. So what is too long of a program? I'll start there. Too long running a program is a program that you're not making any more progress on. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit silly, a little bit intuitive, but if you're not making any progress, why keep beating a dead horse? It's time to move on. Too soon? What's too soon to switch a program would be a program that you're not even struggling on. Let's say you run a program for 6 weeks and every single week you have a PR, and why stop a good thing? Just because of variety. And I think that's where a lot of people falter, is their programming. And they spend a lot of time online. They look at bodybuilding.com. They look at their fitness model inspiration or whatever, their bodybuilding inspiration, and they put out a new program. They're like, oh, I want to try it. So they're always switching back and forth, and not really making any legitimate progress. And it's hard to make progress if you don't give yourself enough time. So I've run programs, for 4 weeks. Those are more power training programs. I ran those a long time ago. But I've also run, more progressive overload programs for 4 or 5 months. And I know that may sound a little bit crazy, 4 or 5 months, because some people run it for 4 or 5 weeks. But I was just continually getting stronger. And it was in my off season, so I was in no rush to compete. And I was just making good, steady progress. So if you're making progress on your current program, don't feel the need just because it's been X amount of weeks to jump to another one. Now, the second part of Lydia's question, and choosing a particular program after another. So the way that I try to do it, at least for some of my clients, if we can, is to switch between, every program that I have is going to have some kind of element of strength and hypertrophy. It's just a very number of both. So, let's say some programs are going to lean a little bit more towards strength, let's say like 60, 70% strength. And then sometimes the program's going to lead to 60%, hypertrophy. And they're going to flip-flop, accordingly. So ideally, you would want to build up your strength in one program and then take that strength and carry it over. Matt, I saw your question. Carry that strength over into your hypertrophy. So that's how I like to set up some of my questions. Let me grab a drink here. We're at the 20-minute mark. All right, Lydia, another solid one. Preferred method to tighten up a little without doing a full mini cut. She asked, should we incorporate more cardio, switch up the program, or dial down macros, etc.? So Lydia, that's a good question. Really, I think for you, for a lot of people out there, they could stop trolling me, Matt. For a lot of people, no, I lost my train of thought. Thanks, Matt. I think for a lot of people, that switching up their program and switching up the intensity level, so you're going to get a little bit more caloric expenditure, burn a little bit more energy with a new workout program, might do the trick. Make sure that you are constantly increasing your weight. And you could even Lydia, you could even change up your cardio a little bit. Maybe it's throwing a HIIT session in, every other day. That might be a good idea. Just to mix things up. But really, I really don't like to cut back on the total macros too much. I would weigh more on the side of increasing energy expenditure with either cardio or changing up your program. So that is a very good question, but I would stick with either one of those two methods. All right, Garrett, one last one from Garrett, and I'll try to get to the ones if there are any more on the actual video thread. And so Garrett asked, why are so many people say that deadlifting with the hex bar isn't a real deadlift? Does it train the same muscles? So yeah, Garrett, I see where you're coming from. Technically it is off the ground. It is a deadlift. But yes, I do believe that it does work different muscles. Me personally, I've hex bar deadlifted before, and I think it has to do a lot with the form. And I think it's a lot more quad dominant, in all honesty. I think it's more like a dead squat, if that makes sense. The deadlift, you're a little bit more out over the bar, so it's going to work your glutes and hamstrings a little bit more, especially depending on your stance. But there's that one. So Matt, I know he had one, and I want to see if I have the ability to backtrack the questions here, because this is my first one, so bear with me. All right. Matt asked one other question in the thread, and that was, why do I have him eat Reese's before stepping on stage? And Matt, that is a trade secret, man. I'll have to tell that offline. But no, actually, it just helps you maintain your pump, slow digestion a little bit with the fat, and it delivers a little bit more sugar into the bloodstream to fill you out. And that's really the main reason. You could eat a Snickers bar. A lot of people just like to have Reese's. And like you said before, when you were on stage, you forgot to take them, first of all. and that's all right. You still won. But it helps you stop being hungry, when you're out stage. It stops your stomach from grumbling, especially like what happened to you. Your class was delayed a little bit, so then you could have, not been worrying about eating. And especially if you're hungry, you might start to deflate a little bit. You might be losing some muscle, some blood volume a little bit from your sugar levels going down. So we just want to make sure that those are topped off. But yeah, if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So the plan is, for those of you who have watched throughout the whole thing or who will be re-watching this later, is every Wednesday night, I will be doing a weekly Wednesday Q&A at 7 o'clock Central Time. So I'll put out a post pretty much every Wednesday for any questions that you want answered. You can feel free to ask them in the live video also. I'll do my best to keep this short. That way you guys can enjoy the rest of your night, as I plan to do so myself. But we'll try to keep them, under a half hour or so. So thanks for everybody for tuning in. I think this first one was very successful, and I hope that, you guys learned some more information. If you have any questions about what we covered, I know I tend to talk a little bit fast, especially with all like the supplement stuff. If you have any questions on any of that or my nutrition, or even if you have a separate question that maybe I didn't answer or I couldn't get to today, feel free to shoot me a direct message. So once again, I'll be doing this every Wednesday night here for the foreseeable future. I appreciate everybody tuning in. So have a great night and crush it.